All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on this nice spring day. So this is the first of 3 listening sessions that the town board has scheduled. And I want to thank the Steesville Community Association for opening up the hall here for us, our use today. And I will state, but just to clarify, I think most of you are aware, the town is currently considering zoning regulations as a consequence of the findings and recommendations of the town's comprehensive plan that was updated, and that was completed about at the end of 2020. About a year ago, the town board determined to appoint a zoning commission to consider zoning regulations. We proceeded to appoint the zoning commission. We proceeded to appoint a zoning commission, and they have been working on a fairly regular basis over the past year. Those meetings have been open meetings and announced by the town. And the charge they were given was to recommend the boundaries of the original zoning districts and appropriate regulations to be enforced therein, make a preliminary report, which is under development, hold public hearings, and submit a final report to the local government board. So they've been working away. And currently, I think most of you are aware of the draft, the 12/28/21 draft document, and that was provided from our planner to the zoning commission to begin their whittling and crafting of it, and that is underway right now. That was made public by virtual. It was a best faith effort to be transparent and provide a document that was going to be discussed at a meeting. And so that has been available. But I state this just to emphasize that it is being revised, and I don't know exactly when we're finished, but I think they're hoping within about a month from now to have something for the public, that they will keep you apprised of that. So with all of this going on, we heard from the public that they wanted to provide input to the town board on a more general level about the town's zoning initiative. I just described in broad brush our process leading to where we are now. And so we determined at our March town board meetings to hold these 3 listening sessions. And so today is the first one. So the purpose of the meeting is to provide an opportunity for residents to provide guidance to the town board as it considers zoning. Specific recommendations on the 12/28/21 draft zoning law that I just mentioned that is being revised by the zoning commission should be sent to the zoning commission. And we will pass on any comments like that we hear. So for today's meeting, the meeting guidelines that we've set are each speaker will have 3 minutes to offer comments, and we'll try to give a warning before that 3-minute period is up. Comments should be directed to the town board. Speakers shall maintain respectful discourse. The others shall remain quiet while others are speaking. And comments shall not be directed to other members in attendance who are not the town board. And speakers may speak a second time if everyone else who wishes to speak has had a chance to do so for the first time. So, and as I said in the announcement, the purpose of the meeting is to hear from you. We will be listening. We will not be providing individual feedback or comment on every listener, but we may offer comments at the end of today's listening session. And then finally, I just want to point out, this is the first one, as I said. Next Saturday, the 26th, at the same time, 1 o'clock, we'll hold one at the Carolina Town Hall as well. That will be hybrid, so it'll be in person and Zoom. And then the week after that, we're going to hold one at the same time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday at the Brookendale Fire Hall. That'll be an in-person meeting. So, without further ado, I guess, are there any questions?
I have one. How come we're limited to 3 minutes? I can't even get 2 sentences out in 3 minutes.
Well,
I mean, if I talk slow so people can understand.
So if everybody is through their comments, it's just a policy we set to organize the meeting, and if everyone speaks is wishing to do so, then you'll have a second chance to speak. So, Becky?
Yes. Why is there only 3 board members here?
2 other board members had other commitments and could not be here today, but they will be listening to the tape.
You know, that in itself shows how inadequate you are.
Before you start, somewhere back in the beginning there, you mentioned something about the gold something that implied that there was, there are already zones in your speech. There was something crazy you used that
Just now.
suggested that there was some history of zones and their zones.
I didn't mean to imply that or say that, but that is not true.
It's not.
Thank you. So, with that,
Does everybody know that they have to sign that to speak?
yeah, so if you do want to speak, sign this, thank you, sign this sign-up sheet here, and we're going to limit, try to give you a warning, and went over the particulars. So, first up, Joe.
One other question, for your point, will the other board members know what happened here?
Yeah, so
You
we're
recorded it?
recording the meeting, and they will, so, and Jesse is taking notes as well. And there will be, yeah, so,
Maybe the board members could identify themselves.
Sure. So I should have identified myself at the outset. So I'm Mark Whipper, the town supervisor.
Hi, I'm Catherine Goldberg, glad you're all here.
I'm Cal Snow, member of Mount Board.
Okay, thank you. Very well. Okay. You ready to start? So with that, Peter Coit is the first speaker.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, I'm synchronized. Just 2 brief announcements before I talk. We have a list of things to worry about the proposed zoning law in Caroline, and after the meeting, I would put them on the calendar there before we pick them up. And the other one is also after the meeting, if anybody has it, speak up.
Yes.
Thank you. I never been accused of that before, that's fine, thank you. So we got these, check them out, they'll be there after the meeting, and also see me or John if you haven't signed a petition yet and would like to. So, I know that this meeting has been designated as not a question and answer session, but I can still ask questions, and I'm gonna. I don't expect answers, but I'm gonna ask anyway. And my first question is, where is Tim Murray? I know you alluded that he's got family business, but this is a pattern. I have seen Tim at one town board meeting live, first and only one in months, and that was when you were on Town Park. He seems to be the council member who is most identified with the pro-zoning effort, and I think it would behoove him to actually show up and hear what people have to say. I take it as an insult for an elected official. I'll leave it at that. Here's a question. I wrote these, by the way. Some ideas from other people. Why are you going to such great lengths to further alienate your constituents? For For example, refusing to answer questions at this and similar meetings. I pose that as a rhetorical question that I think everybody should consider. Oh yeah. Why not encourage, or can't remember right. Would not zoning encourage the kinds of divisive behavior, as which we all abhor, of neighbor turning against neighbor, under the guise of exercising rights conferred under the zoning law? You know what I'm talking about. I got my garden shed that's 2 inches too big, and I got away with it. But my neighbor says, his garden shed's 2 inches too big. That kind of thing, okay? Now that's an extreme example, but certainly in every instance that I know of, so there are going to be neighbors who are going to be empowered in their nosiness, whatever you want to call it, their bad temper, and then under the cover of zoning, we'll be able to just be a whole lot less neighborly. Everybody talks about the value of the neighborhood. The last question, if I have time here. Oh yeah, I got about half a minute. One of the presumed reasons for pushing zoning so hard at this time has been the threat posed by the Dollar General store 2 years ago, going up there on Route 79. Given that there is at least one commercial zone under consideration within half a mile of where that Dollar General was to have been, how will zoning prohibit a future such store? I mean, it's a commercial, I'm not quite sure even how it can be worded, even if you wanted to. I mean, you're going to say square feet? Well, hell, that ain't very good. Are you going to say, well, Dollar General? No, but other people, okay. Well, then, now that's discriminatory. So, I mean, it's almost like it's flying under false colors to say that we have to stop these evil Dollar General or any other such evil store. And yet, when you get right down to it, I'm not sure all the zoning stuff would even accomplish that. It would accomplish a lot of other things, in my opinion, all bad. Okay, my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is William Risico.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Ruzinko. I've lived in the town over 27 years, and I just came here with a few questions for the board. My wife and I weren't even aware that zoning was happening until a young gentleman came to visit us to sign a petition against it, and that was in January, which we did sign. So my questions to the town board today, I have three here, mainly, is why is zoning needed now? I've lived here many, many years and we got by fine without it. And the second question I have, what's the cost of these zoning laws going to be, regulations? You know, I'm sure it's not going to be free and our taxes are going to increase. And the big thing that I was reading in the brochure that I just got in the mail from the town on Monday, in the yellow pages there, we don't even have a vote on this under New York state law. 5 people, four board members and the town supervisor is going to decide this for all of us. It's absolutely ridiculous. The people can't vote on this. It's just not democratic. And that's about all I have to say. I won't keep, maybe speak later, but that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Next up is Roberta Holcomb.
I'm Roberta Holcomb. I don't know probably a lot of you people, and I don't know, maybe it's better, but we'll see how this goes. All I had to do was read through the purpose of zoning, which is the first paragraph in their zoning thing, and this is the purpose of zoning. Health and safety. You don't need zoning for health and safety because the code enforcement laws of New York State cover health and safety in your community when you're building a building, electrical codes and all that. You don't need zoning for health and safety. Don't let anybody tell you you need zoning for health and safety. Your code enforcement is your health and safety, and it goes by the laws of New York State. Secondly, the second purpose that they put down that we needed the purpose for was the comprehensive plan. He mentioned the comprehensive plan. I've gone through these comprehensive plans. They're required by New York State of every town to do a comprehensive plan. You know what the towns do? They copy somebody else's, they edit in their thing, they maybe edit something, they pretend that it's all for uniqueness, but it ain't for uniqueness. There's certain elements that's got to be in the comprehensive plan or else yours fails the New York State rules. So don't let them tell you that you need zoning because of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a bunch of BS that New York State makes every town right. The next thing that they have on their purpose for zoning is to protect the town's physical development, orderly, efficient, safe, and economical. They use all these fancy big words, but I'm going to tell you something. There is nothing, absolutely nothing efficient about the government when they put a law in place. There's nothing efficient about it. It's totally inefficient, it's totally unorderly, and it's not going to help with anything physical that y'all are building. So you do not need, the purpose of their purpose for zoning is stating that you need it to protect the physical development in your town. You don't need it for that. You don't need zoning for that. You've got code enforcement for that, and you've got neighbors. If you don't want a sex parlor in your town, guess what? All you have to do is take pictures of everybody that's going into that sex parlor and put it on the internet. People will stop going. I was in a complete other town, and that's exactly what happened. The titty bar went in, and they went in there, and they took pictures of everybody going in. Well, it didn't last a year. So you don't need zoning for that, I'm going to tell you. The next thing is, they got on their list that you need the purpose for their zoning is environment. Oh, it is deemed essential for the economy of the town. Give us a break. A lot of people have been in these towns around here for 50 years. We had more stores. There was more stores here in Speedsville, more business here in Speedsville, more business in Richford, more business in all these towns 50 years ago than you have in these towns today. What you have in these towns today and what they're saying you need zoning for basically is urban sprawl. Urban sprawl has been happening forever. It's not just houses, sometimes it's businesses. But how many businesses have urban sprawled into this area in the last 50 years? I bet they can't name 10 because there is no businesses. All it is houses. They say they're going to protect farmland. You know what the one thing they put in their little, oh, this is the purpose of their zoning, to protect farmland? Well, guess what? They're going to discourage fossil fuels. I am not a damn Amish. I am using fossil fuels to farm. And that's what people use fossil fuels for. We're a farmer that sells beef. We have freezers. When the power goes out, guess what? Everything ain't run by electricity on the dang farm. We have generators. They're run by fossil fuels. There's nothing in this zoning that is going to help a farmer. I would like the town board to tell me one thing in this thing that's going to help a farmer, because there's absolutely nothing that's going to help a farmer. Then they have another fancy thing in there, and this is just part of the purpose of it. The entire purpose of this particular zoning law You couldn't repurpose this building right here for a school if you wanted your own little school in Speedsville. You can't do it because of code enforcement. Zoning ain't gonna help you keep antique buildings in your town. I'm gonna tell you that and repurpose it. Zoning is not gonna do that because that goes towards the code. Okay, I have a couple more things here. I don't know, they're probably gonna cut me off, but okay. They're saying to avoid, you have one commercial zone going through this whole thing, and that's Route 79. I don't need any zoning law to tell me Route 79 is a commercial zone, as it should be. Route 79 is automatically a commercial zone. We went through this in the town of Richford as well. Zoning. We have 38, we have 79 going through the town of Richford. Guess how much property there's there that anybody can build on? 95% of it is side hill or it's in a swamp. You can't build on any of that land. So Richford, oh yeah, we had a few people, oh they're worried some big box store or something's going to come in. I said, where the heck are they going to build it? They're going to build around 79 to 38. There ain't even no buildable property along those two intersections. So the town of Richford did not get zoning. So here we go down here. You got Route 79. There's still some fields along Route 79 that should be commercial. That's where your commercial zone is. Out here in Timbuktu, Speedsville, I'm sorry, but it's going to be a mom and pop business out here. So does their zoning law wants to stop a mom and pop business? They say they don't, but that's exactly what it's going to do. It's not going to make things move forward efficiency. Government slows everything down. You have code enforcement officers that go and check everything for safety, security, all that kind of stuff. There's a million laws in New York State. You know what zoning's going to do for the town of Caroline right now? You know what it's going to do? Right now, we got a lot of Americans pissed off at the federal government. You got a lot of them pissed off at the state government. Zoning is going to make people pissed off at your local government too. And it shouldn't be that way because this is local government. You should have some kind of control over what's going on in your local government. You don't need zoning for that. Okay, they have on there because this is their big purpose also is outdoor recreation. How many people in the town of Caroline don't already have their own outdoor recreation? We don't need the purpose of a zoning to tell us outdoor recreation. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. What they're trying to prevent is urban sprawl. If you've lived in this area for 50 years, it's been urban and sprawling the whole darn time. You know, what maybe it's going to stop urban sprawl. Maybe it's going to stop 1.6 million people coming in across the border. Maybe it's going to stop the 33 million people that are staying here illegally. I don't know what's going to stop urban sprawl, but I can tell you one thing. A zoning law ain't going to do it. A zoning law is going to make it, oh, okay, when you put some new, because I lived in the zoning area, I put new steps going up to my house. They had painted steps on it. They told me how to paint it. Well, these are pressure-treated wood steps. I wrote them back. I said, I know you got zoning, but I ain't painting no pressure-treated wood steps. They don't need painting. I'm not painting. But that's what zoning does. It lets everybody get in everybody else's business, which what a lot of people like to do that, get in other people's business. And the only other thing that zoning does right now, and somebody mentioned it creates divisiveness between neighbors and all that kind of stuff. But you know what it does? It's discriminatory. Zoning is discriminatory. It's the biggest discriminatory thing you got because what it says is the government, your little local government here, can discriminate and they can say, oh, you can build a restaurant here, but you can't build one over here. Well, this guy is the guy that wants to build a restaurant. It's discriminatory. That's all it is. Zoning has no purpose for the town of Caroline. It will do Caroline no good. And all I did was read the purpose paragraph of their zoning law to know that the purpose is BS. Excuse me, it's BS.
Excellent job.
I have heard of those.
Thank you, Roberta. Next up is Richard Valentine. If anybody's come in late, there's a sign-up sheet to speak right here. I do want to clarify, I did bring, this is this folder here has a common misperceptions information sheet from the zoning commission that I brought as a point of information. Just to clarify that, so grab a copy if you'd like.
So that was totally amazing. I won't be able to top that. I'll try and speak up to you, Gary.
I'm a follower.
So I'm addressing my comments towards the board. So you've heard from lifelong residents who work their land hard for generations to make ends meet and to pay property taxes. Sometimes due to competitive market forces, people must change how they work their land, switching between agricultural and commercial operations, even if it's just temporary. If zoning is in place, then those families will lose that flexibility. Zoning may force them into doing only agricultural work rather than something more profitable. They may even be forced to sell their property that has been their family for generations. If zoning is enacted, then in order to use their land differently, they have to apply for a variance, permit, schedule inspections, pay fees, etc. Zoning really does kill dreams. One of the main attractions of the property I purchased was that I had a lot of freedom to do what I wanted. I used that freedom to clean up all trash and junk that was strewn there over the whole 1.5 acres over many years by the previous owner. I hauled away load after load of junk. No government intervention or mandates was required. Question: why didn't you reach out to the landowners and ask them each how they would like their own parcel zoned? Why not have a category called unzoned? I think if you were to ask each landowner how they wanted their own parcel zoned, they would have chosen unzoned, with the fewest number of restrictions. My understanding is that zoning stemmed out of the comprehensive plan, which was based off of 380 of 1,400 responses to a survey that we sent out. I personally never received the survey, probably because it was sent to the same address, probably because it was not sent to the same address where I had my tax bill sent. Someone sent me photos of some of the questions. They were vague and broad in scope. Also, the board has assumed that the proper response to all those questions is a government response. Perhaps the reason why only 308 people answered the survey was because the survey wording itself turned people off and upset them. Perhaps if people knew that zoning would be the end result, they would have responded to the survey and expressed opposition to it. Now that people know that zoning is in the works, why don't you send out a new brief survey on a self-addressed stamped postcard that asks your constituents the simple question: do you want zoning or not? Then print a QR code on the postcard that will take respondents to a website that presents the best arguments from both sides, both for and against zoning. Let people make an informed decision. While your intentions may be good, the road to hell is paved with them. I think the zoning law you proposed and the way you've gone about it is anti-American, authoritarian, and a violation of property rights. It is immoral to deprive people of the future use of their land without compensating them. Just because it is technically legal to do it doesn't make it okay. Please consider dropping this entire effort and focus on something else.
Thank you, Richard. Joe Wiki.
Mine's not as long as these guys. I only have two big questions. Mainly because these zoning laws are too ponderous and confusing to speak on all of them and to stay within the time allotted. A lot of people already seen that. So I'll just give you one example of these frustrating plans. This is regarding the property my wife and I own at the corner of 76 Road and Level Green Road. It is being shown split in half and labeled as part of the hamlet of Speedsville according to your new zoning lines. Question 1. Will this split result in the half that falls on the map as a hamlet zone to become taxed higher? This land has been farmed for as long as Speedsville has existed, and we had no plans before this on changing that. No boundary line was ever necessary there before. Question 2 is a follow-up to that first question. A few years ago, we were contemplating building a house at the top of this land. We could not afford the cost to build at that time, partly due to some other existing Caroline law. We had to accept that. But now, if we were to consider trying to build again, with these new laws showing on your zoning map, splitting our land, increase the cost even higher due to these new building permits, guidelines, future taxes, etc. The answers to these first two questions would appear to generate more red tape and further costs. My last question is aimed as to why so much time and money has been wasted on this issue that was not a problem. How could a few opportunists push this agenda while neglecting a more necessary and vital problem in the town? The issue that comes to the top of my list is the ongoing dilemma of a lack of an ambulance service for the town of Caroline. Has this critically important service been placed under the back burner by this unwelcome, costly study that resulted in the unfortunate residents of the town of Caroline who are not in the close proximity of Bang's ambulance to be abandoned, discarded, and forgotten at Speedsville?
Thank you, Joe. Tony, Duelli.
I don't know if there's anything left to say. Two topics. Comprehensive plan. That was written before I started getting involved. It was 2009, I think, when I had a planning board and we started learning about this thing. And during the fracking fight, I asked numerous times, what is this thing? What's this comprehensive plan? And it was always told to me, Susan Barr, who was the original drafter, she goes, it's nothing more than a wish list. I said, is it a law? No, it's not. It's nothing more than a wish list. When they came to Speedsville the last time, when we were updating it, I think it was 5 years, Bill Panuka said, no, it's nothing more than a wish list. If we'd have known that that was tied or needed for zoning, you'd have never got it written. There's been an uproar, what you have now, it's always been in this town, nobody wanted zoning, nobody wanted. I'll say nobody wants it now because they have people moving in that may think that that's a good idea. And I said previously that I thought some kind of simple zoning might be all right. After seeing this, what you say is not the draft, but it's listed as a draft. I see what is possible. It is scary, and I don't want you over that bridge where in the future that stuff is added into this. That's noise ordinance and it's ugly. So the point is, the comprehensive plan was sold as a wish list. We were not told that it would lead into zoning. Second is the issue of board members not showing up to board meetings. I believe that the position on any board, town, state, federal, to me is no different than being in the military. It's an honor, it's a position of respect. It should be treated that way. And showing up to a board member, I guess I understand that during COVID they're afraid to come, and I get that. But at some point you got to give that up. You got to show up. We expect to see you. We expect to be able to talk to you. And I think it's time that the board made sure they were in their seats. All. There's times when you're on vacation. Things happen, family things happen. Sure, we understand that. But this Zoom thing is proven that it doesn't work. The schools know it now. And I've been pushing for somebody to document, whether it's a college or somebody to do a study on what it did to our students, this Zoom thing. And the same thing is true with the board. I don't know how you can Zoom. It's a fact that you cannot collect information well through Zoom. You're not able to see faces. You're not able to feel the emotion that's in the room through a computer. I think that's it for tonight. We'll see what else is happening. So, thank you.
Thanks, Louis. John Morse.
Hi folks, John Morse. First of all, I saw a lot of no zoning signs on the way here today. I've been on speed zone a while. Thanks for everybody for speaking up for what they believe out there. That's pretty fantastic. So today, the board's decided not to answer questions. I got a lot of stuff people already said here, but so be it. Why a meeting dedicated to a single subject and dedicated to engaging the residents, are we choosing not to answer questions today? I hope everyone who speaks today, whether you're for or against zoning, will mention that it bothers you that the government that's by for the people is unwilling to answer questions at a dedicated meeting specifically on the subject. Thanks to those of you who are here today and to those of you who have been coming to the meetings in person. You cannot get the kind of emotion that Roberta gave us at the other end of the Zoom call, and that's why we want people here. It is super sad that those other two members are not here today. So, I think I speak for many when I say it's pretty sad to give one 3 days notice for this meeting. Maybe that's why the other board members aren't here. You didn't give us notice. This has been going on for nearly 2 years, and we've had plenty of time to schedule something more than 3 days, right? So why 3 days? I have a question. Are you in a hurry to push this through during a pandemic, or maybe before the next election? No answer to the question, so I'll take my best guess at that, and I'll assume that the answer is yes to both of those questions. It seems to me that if you're really doing this for the residents, then it only makes sense to vote on zoning after the next election, where residents can have their voice and vote based on a candidate's platform for or against zoning. Also, thanks to all, again, who attended in person today in previous meetings, I think it's really important, kind of covered this already, that the meetings are in person. And I get it, like Tony said, that COVID may stop some folks from coming to these meetings if you're at higher risk. Much of the world has been back to work for a really long time. Many people did not have a choice if they wanted to earn a dollar. If COVID is scary, Zoom is convenient, but in person is the only way to get the emotions out. And if you have higher risk, no problem. Safety first, right? But if we're not in a hurry, if that's truly the case, if we're not in a hurry to push through zoning, then why have we pushed so hard when you can't even get the board members to come in person and listen to residents? It makes no sense. We've been here since 1811 without zoning. It does not hurt us to push this back until it's a safe situation to have your board members here. More questions. Mark stated in the Caroline Quarterly recently that I think probably most everyone got, that the updated comprehensive plan, and this is a quote, the updated comprehensive plan highlighted increasing growth pressures in our rural town, which we expect to continue. The town board felt that the most responsible course of action was to proceed without delay to fully consider a zoning plan for the town. The goal is to promote the town's vision and protect the welfare and property values of all its residents. Again, Mark's statement in the thing, do not believe that unplanned growth would be a good thing for Caroline. So, a couple things on that. Mark's statement says without delay, and that unplanned growth is a bad thing. People have made their own decisions about their own properties in this town without the help of Mark or without zoning laws for over 200 years. Caroline, is it that bad that we've made those decisions badly? Do we now need Mark's help without delay to ensure the integrity of our town? I don't think so, in my opinion. Caroline is a very diverse town, diversity of land uses and income levels. Farms and businesses have come and gone. Caroline is a melting pot with opportunity for people of all walks and all income levels. Why do we need to fix this without delay? Where is the fire causing this hard push during a pandemic? Also, Mark mentioned in that same statement the increasing growth pressures that the board felt they needed to protect us from. Mark, I would love to ask you now about your data on the growth pressures but no questions today. So I'll take my best, your best attempt to answer that question. Here's an interesting chart that came from somewhere within the town's process. It's in regards to construction over the decades in Carolyn. From 2010 to 2020, this chart shows 50 new properties, I believe all or mostly all residential. Is that a lot in 10 years, 59 properties? I don't know if that's a lot for a town like Caroline. I've never compared it to any other town. Caroline's a big space, I would expect you to get 6 per year. But let's look back farther. From 2000 to 2009, there were 83, 24 more than the last decade. In 1990 to 1999, there were 131 new properties, more than double what we saw in the last 10 years. 161 in the block before that. Seems to me that, in fact, the most recent block was the lowest that we've seen since the mid-1900s. Seems to me that the growth is actually slowing down in Caroline. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah.
Maybe because the farmers want to farm and are unwilling to sell their land to everyone who wants it. They like to farm. You know, that's what we do. Let's spend this zoning money to help the farmers. After all, it is they who actually create the rural character, not those of us living in single-family homes on 3-acre lots. Maybe Mark's comments on the growth referred to new businesses being built here instead of residential. Good question. I tried to think of new businesses that were physically constructed and operated as a business in the last 5 to 10 years. Sweet Caroline comes to mind, most recently. I can't think of any others in the last 5 to 10 years, but I could be wrong. I don't know on that one. How about the last 15 to 20 years? Now you have the Boyceville Apartments, maybe that wood shop on Boyceville Road. If we look back 25 years, then you get Celebrations, constructed in 97 to 99, and the Ideal Storage Units out front, which actually started as something else. The other new businesses I can think of in Caroline took over existing properties. They did not build new properties. Is this a good example of increased growth pressure in this town? 4 to 5 new businesses in 25 years and a consistent pattern of decreasing residential growth over the past half-century? Then all of a sudden, one new business tries to join our Caroline community. And we're suddenly in a business moratorium and also trying to lock down everyone's property rights. Holy crap. I've mentioned before that I believe zoning in a rural community is selfish and creates an environment for the privileged. Elitism, I call it. Some people did not agree with me on that. I don't blame them. Why would anyone want to admit to being selfish or to taking advantage of their privileged situation while squeezing out lower income individuals in today's society? Well, let me ask this. What is in the proposed zoning draft for the little guy? What? Smaller lot sizes to keep costs down? Nope. Lower taxes? Nope. With less businesses and less people coming in to pay taxes? And increased costs to enforce the zoning regulations? Taxes are going up. Will the little guy see less regulations to help keep building costs down? Nope. More regulations. Is it easier to start a truly small business? The American dream. Sorry, but no. How about local, low-cost shopping where a person in need might even be able to use food stamps without spending $10 on gas to get to Ithaca and 30 minutes of travel time? Definitely not. Nothing for the little guy, but it seems there's plenty of zoning for the more privileged households. Plenty in zoning. Fewer and larger lots available. Guarantee you'll be driving up through 79. No business development, etc. Higher tax rates, but if you can afford it, then who cares, as your property value also climbs at the expense of others. Perfect recipe to actually promote urban sprawl instead of stopping it, as others mentioned this. As those with means look to escape the city and get their piece of the country while maintaining the safety that comes with a homeowners association, then farmers who can no longer afford the higher taxes will just sell even faster. Again, I think that zoning is also selfish. I said that a moment ago, and some don't agree. I say that if you think stopping a small business on Route 79, a main artery feeding Ithaca with lots of exposure, to preserve your view on Route 79, or your ideal conception of what you think is good for Caroline, if you think that is more important than an actual farmer selling land he purchased on Route 79 as an investment, property that he doesn't even farm, and wants to sell it to create cash flow to continue his passion as farming becomes less solvent as a business, if you think that, then you're selfish. If you don't want said store because you don't like it in our town, but others who would benefit continue to suffer, then you are selfish. If you don't want it because it will increase traffic on your side road by 20 cars per day, but the families on Brookendale Road just below now get 20 less cars passing their house as people don't have to drive to Ithaca to the store anymore. If you think 20 more cars on your road is more important than 20 less for someone else, then you're selfish. I can go on and on. I'm not saying that you might not like the new neighbor or the new business that moves in next door. You might not. I might not. But controlling others' land to satisfy your personal preferences with no safety risk, already mentioned, to anyone, is just selfish. Choosing to live in Caroline has always meant freedom. Our community is not a homeowners association where you have say over your neighbor. If you moved to Caroline thinking you could control other people's property choices, or if you moved onto Route 79 thinking businesses would never be interested in that real estate, then you are either naive or that you did not do your due diligence before buying. Either is your fault and not the fault of the person selling the vacant lot. He pays taxes on, and if you think otherwise, you are selfish. Not done yet, but almost. Another question: if zoning is protecting farmers in the rural landscape, then why have I not met a single farmer in favor of zoning? Maybe they're out there, but with all the exposure, I've not met one. I'm sure we don't have an answer for that question here today either. Why did you not insist on a farmer being on the zoning commission? Why not insist on a single business owner being on the zoning commission? Insist on it. Why have you not filled the 3 empty seats on the zoning commission? With 3 empty seats, you could choose a farmer, a business owner, and someone who didn't make the original cut due to technicalities. For me, I say keep Caroline free. Don't promote privilege while squeezing out the less fortunate. Caroline, New York, established 1811, no zoning needed.
Thank you, John. Bruno.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bruno Schickel. I'll try to speak up so that bloody thing can make a lot of noise. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate you all coming. And I will say, I'll echo what John said. I'm disappointed the other 2 board members aren't here. That is really surprising. You know, Caroline has been evolving for 200 years. The settlers came in, they cut down the trees, they farmed to the top of the hills. You know, every little, the military lots, tracts of 60 acres, there's a farm here, farm there, farm there. Those started to fail. People started, farms started consolidating. And, they got bigger and bigger. And you see a lot of those remnants of those farms around, and they started failing. A little hamlet like this had a heyday, and then it sort of slid back. And there's this ebb and flow that happens. And people make little adjustments. They make little adjustments to their life, to their need. They adapt to their circumstance. And what zoning does fundamentally is it inserts central planning. It basically says, we're the experts. We know best for you all what needs to happen to preserve our rural character in this case. And I don't think there's actually any disagreement that people really like the rural character of Caroline. And I would argue that the rural character of Caroline is not threatened by the lack of zoning. But I would argue that it's actually threatened by zoning being proposed. I mean, significantly threatened. If you want to talk about central planning, just take a look around to the other towns around that have central planning. Go over to Lansing. You know, it's large lot suburbia. I mean, I've built big houses over there. You know, I've built multi-million-dollar houses. There's, you know, McMansions along everywhere. They're popping up like daisies. The zoning proposal that you put in place is large lot suburban zoning. It's saying we want suburbia for Caroline. And it's under the mistaken notion that it's going to somehow preserve the rural nature. And it is going to do anything but. I'm telling you, I'm not, I don't think this is hyperbole. It is going to result in that. For instance, let's just take the 3-acre or 5-acre lot size proposal. The whole idea of that is that it's going to preserve open space. No, it's not. It's going to gobble up everything faster. I mean, it's completely insane. If you truly want to preserve open space, you got to say you want to allow people to build as dense as possible, not the opposite. I mean, logic tells you if you're going to build 10 houses and you need 50 acres versus 10 houses and you're going to need 2, which one preserves open space more? Which one preserves the rural character? Now, when I drive from here to Speedsville, and I drive any place in Caroline, you know, one of the things that's very powerful is a lot of people around here are struggling. I mean, this is a tough town. It's not a wealthy town. And it's really important that the town government watch out for the little guy. That is, in my mind, that's one of the most primary roles of the government, to watch out for the little guy. Because people like me, I'll be just fine. I really mean that. I mean, I don't think of myself as a little guy, but zoning by its very nature is going to be manipulated to the advantage of people with money, people with power, and people with connections. That's what's going to happen. They're going to write the laws and the rules to benefit them. And I'll give you a perfect example of, you know, I built Boyceville cottages. I'm very proud of it. I think it was a great addition to the town. People love living there. It increases your tax base. It's very environmentally sensitive. I have 140 houses on 40 acres of land. Okay? Now, what are the rules that I had to follow? I had to get septic approval from the Tompkins County Health Department. So the septic rules are already in place everywhere in the town. You don't need zoning to protect the environment when it comes to septic. I had to comply with stormwater management rules. The stormwater, I had to put together a stormwater prevention pollution plan called a SWIP. That's required by the state of New York if you disturb over an acre of land. Those rules already exist. And then for all sorts of other industries, whether it's agriculture, gas stations, a variety of other industries, New York State has all sorts of other regulations in place to provide environmental protections for those. So the argument that we need this zoning, this 130-some page document, because that's the only way we can protect the environment, it's just simply not true. Those rules are already in place. The water, the groundwater, the stormwater, all those things are already being protected. So, As a general rule, most people in this country, their life savings is tied up in their home and their property, their land. That is pretty typical of most people. Their biggest asset is their home. I'll give you an example. Somebody has a 3-acre piece of land. I know, I talked to this woman yesterday. She has a 3-acre piece of land in Sladeville. She has a nice home on it. She has room for another lot there. Your zoning comes in place. She would not be able to subdivide her property because she's in the 3-acre zone area. She would not be able to subdivide her property and sell off a lot. The septic rules in Tompkins County say it's perfectly fine to do. No issues whatsoever for groundwater protection at all. The result is that woman, this passes, she immediately, her value of her property drops $50,000. Because that lot's worth $50,000. It is, and my reaction is, again, watching out for the little guy. Why would you do something that would immediately result in the loss of value to the little guy, to your residents that you're sort of duty bound to protect, not abuse? Self-interest is always at the core of zoning. Always at the core of zoning. Zoning is also the most powerful tool that has been used historically in this country to segregate society. And it is always the connected, the wealthy, the privileged that use it to brutal effect on their neighbors. It's documented, it's historic, it's used all the time. And I'm sure you're saying, oh, no, that's not our intention. But what are you doing? Already, your proposed zoning law would do immediately that. As proposed right now. You don't even have to wait 10 years to have it modified into something worse and worse and worse. Right now, you're going to be redlining areas of the town. And you're going to be limiting people's choices to shop, limiting people's choices to live. And the reality is, zoning always becomes an egregious case of discrimination dominated by wealthy people who do not like the way people with fewer resources live. And you think about it. You proposed zoning law that specifically says a Dollar General, just to use an example, cannot be built in this town. Who shops at the Dollar General?
Yeah.
Not them. Okay? Who shops at the Dollar General? You're redlining the town. You're basically saying you're limiting people's freedom and flexibility on where they can shop. One of the things about Caroline is the rural nature of it is that you got a really nice house over here and there's a trailer across the road. I happen to like that.
Me too.
I happen to like that. I think that it's the core, quite honestly, it's the core of what rural living is like. That you get this crazy mixed up demographic of a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. That needs to be preserved.
Right.
Not destroyed, not sanitized, not pushed out. It needs to be embraced and say, we're a community that accepts and supports and loves everybody who wants to live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. Look, Tim.
I guess I was motivated to actually follow the zoning more when I saw this. I guess it was a zoning board meeting in the town hall, and there was a lady running it, And she seemed to think that any comment about zoning was keeping them from doing their work or business. And it just really turned me off, that attitude. And I just, I was really surprised. I thought, it just didn't sound like a community that I thought we had, maybe, so that was my motivation, I guess, or that was sort of when I first even realized, or I got sort of in touch with whatever. So I guess, and I've been thinking about it, just how it would benefit me, and not to be, it's not clear to me, so maybe somebody can explain later, and I think, I guess one question is maybe also the town board. I guess my understanding is the town board can enact it with a simple vote. Can it be de-enacted with a simple by the next town board, or is it, once it's in place, is it harder to withdraw? And then, I guess, I'm really impressed by all of it. Seems like people have put a lot more thought into it than I have. I mean, we've spoken today, and I think it's very impressive to me, just all the things people considered and how it's just, it's actually, it's sort of ironic, but, because most, or some people wouldn't consider people who live out here so enlightened to be thinking about this discriminatory laws and so forth, but it seems like people out here are more enlightened in some ways than you would think, anyways. I just have been impressed with what I've heard everybody say, and I guess my big concern is that it seems like there's this gratuitous and arrogant exercise of power by those who think they can do it, and it's just dividing the town, and that's what in the community, which I think is the biggest threat of all, maybe. It's just to have people, it was already, I was involved in the fracking stuff, and it was somewhat disappointing to see what happened there and the town being divided, and it just seems like this is more of it. So I just hope that we can figure out how people can come together and exercise power for different agendas.
Did you know Cindy Kittle?
Hi, my name's Cindy. I've been here 36 years. We moved here from Western New York and had an apartment in Dryden. Woman owned the land that I own now, and she was a family member of a distant relative. Fell in love, built a house, 35 years. My kids want to stay. They want a homestead there. All of that, and go. Now, I became a single parent. I still have my dreams. And I cannot imagine why you, anybody has a right to tell me. Who are you to tell me how I can live, how my family can live, or how anybody else can live? I think that it is so arrogant that it is unbelievable that you would do that. On the subject of the town board members, it's already been spoke of, but I watched a Zoom meeting where one of the members didn't like what somebody was saying and they got up and left. You were elected to sit here and to listen to people and to get up and walk away and never come back to the meeting. They should not be on the board. If we could say and have a no vote confidence like they do in other places, that'd be where I'd start. That was unacceptable. The division and the elitist is absolutely the case. We've got a third of this town that doesn't even have internet. Is that a place we should be putting our energy? Shouldn't we be trying to help them? Their kids were home during COVID. Talk about getting left behind, we're only going to make it worse. And I just think that that is not okay. You want diversity, the world is about diversity, we have it here. And you want to take that away. We don't want to be the bedroom the community. We don't want to be Ward and June Cleaver. Not everybody wants a white picket fence around their land. We're going to have tattletailing on people. I don't know whoever's got a real problem with pigs. All I hear about is, oh, they have a pig farm, oh my God, they're going to have pigs. Guess what? I got 6 of them. They don't get out, and when they do, they're out like dinner plate. That's how we live. We grow it and we eat it. And that's the way it should be. I agree that we are all really looking for the same thing, and why this has become such a controversial issue when we all want the preservation, the openness. Now, a small family, what we're going to say to a small family, I think of myself. A small family wanted to live out here. We were lucky enough to buy years ago when land was affordable. Maybe you have a family that doesn't want to be downtown. They want to come out. You got to buy 5 acres. What we said is, and they can afford 5 acres. You know what we told them? We don't want your kind here. We don't want your kind. You're not good enough for us. Now, I got a neighbor somewhere in the area, owns 104 acres. Great. He's got it in a preservation zone, not that they're zoning, but a preservation zone pays pennies on the dollar for 104 acres. Now, you want to say, oh, but you've got to open your driveway, open your land, and we can walk. Everybody's going to have access. There'll be no private property. You'll have to take the no trespassing signs off the market, because they won't apply, right? Everybody can walk down your driveway, walk through your yard, because they want to get to a trail. Isn't that what open public access is going to do? Not down my driveway, thank you very much. The trails have not were controversial, and now we want to let you come from private property get to the trails. We're talking about noise. There was a section about smell in there. 55 decibels means no one's going to mow the lawn. Can't mow your lawn. Now, I know we don't want people burning wood. That's the latest push. But a lot of people burn wood. And when it comes out of the chimney, it goes through the air. When it goes through the air, it goes over somebody else's house. And I don't know how you put a smell ordinance or anything that could have now, you could have a bonfire, as long as it's during the time and it's wood only. So now your neighbor's going to tattletale, well, they got a bonfire. Then it's disturbing me. Everybody's offended by everything.
Yeah.
How do you live? How does somebody live when you're offended by everybody around you and they're all going to tattletale and tell you everything? And as far as what it's intended to do, which is not good in the first place, is only going to get worse because you give somebody a nickel and they're going to take $1. And it's going to get spread. The next thing you know, we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. And by the time you're done, we are 54.4 acres or whatever we are of an HOA. And that's not what people came out here to live and to do. And I didn't even think about the ambulance, but thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Because that is a huge problem. Internet, I had on my list. But that ambulance is a big problem too. It was in the budget. We've used the money for something else? I don't know. But you gotta do something about ambulance. Back when the trail came, a woman who lives way down Coddington made the best comment ever. She said, a lot of things on trails, because Ithaca was having a problem with trails and crime. And you get way down that far on the trail. Her comment was very simple. I could be filleted open and laid out there like a fish long before anybody could ever get to me. So we're forgetting about the rural. Ambulance can't get there, police. I mean, it takes forever. We need a local ambulance EMS group. And my only other comment, and I don't even know if it's possible, I don't live in Speedsville, I live in Caroline, but if I lived in Speedsville, I'd be going back to that whole seceding over to Berkshire. Let's secede. If they do that, if you do that, if I lived here, I'd be pushing that, but I don't. But that's a huge tax base that would go away, only making it more for everybody else. So I'm going to urge you to think really long and really hard about the effects because it only positively impacts very few people, but it most definitely and negatively impacts the 99.9999% of everybody else. Thank you. I was supposed to speak today.
Robert Wadsboro.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Swansbrough. I've lived here for 26 years. I'm going to address the town board. Keep my distance. I asked a question a while back. You guys say that you're answering questions on mine. My question was, how do you plan on enforcing zoning when you can't enforce the building code? For a fact, I know one of our old code enforcement officers was told to stop pushing the New York State Code because it was bothering him. He was too strict. Our last code enforcement officer is gone. Why is he gone? I know, because I work for the city of code enforcement. I know why. I think the rest of the town should hear from you guys why he's gone. Okay? NYCRR 1203. It's a New York State law about building code. Do you know this law? You should, you're the town supervisor. Because by this law, you're the authority having jurisdiction, because we don't have a building code enforcement officer. So you should probably know this law. There's 12 things in Nike that does not require a building permit to do. Why do you need zoning? Why? I would like my answers on the town website for them simple questions. I've looked. I've asked before my questions. I have not seen them. You guys said that you're responding through the, I've been watching the zoning meetings, I've been watching the town board meetings. The two town board members that aren't here, I think it's time for them to step down if they can't come do it.
Yes.
Thank you, Robert. Becky Jensen. Becky Jensen?
Oh, might be outside.
Becky, sit back there.
Are you saying Becky?
Yeah, I am saying,
Sean,
yeah.
you guys never can sign in.
Oh, I said the wrong one.
That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll take her place. I'm Rebecca Phillips. I live in the town of Brooksville. Of course, town of whatever they want to call it now, Hamlet, Village, what, whatever. For every one of these people here that are against zoning, I'll guarantee you there's another 150 for each one of them that are on the same wavelength and thinking. And the fact that you got 3 board members here, and other ones had previous commitments, you're being paid to be here. We're paying you. You set this meeting up. You should have set it up so that all the board members can be here, so they can face us eye to eye. That's my biggest objection, is that there's a couple of you that don't want to show up, and this Zoom thing, I don't have Zoom. I don't have a cell phone. My computer doesn't have Zoom's capabilities. I'm a $1 and 3 months short. You know, this Zoom, and you did it in the midst of COVID. Under the blanket of COVID, you created this mayhem. This, it's outrageous.
Thank you, Becky. Sean Jordan.
They just signed it on mine too.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Annie?
Everybody, my name is Andy Moshak, and I've been living here for just under 40 years. I'm disappointed. Not in the process of implementing zoning, because I think the process that the board is using to implement zoning is operating very well. But with the fundamental premise behind the decision to implement zoning. Members of the board, you must be aware that there is a very large negative bias against zoning in the town of Caroline. And yet this board seems to be pushing very, very hard for zoning. Why? The board has not articulated to the citizens why they are pushing for zoning. The flyer that was sent out about 2-3 months ago in the middle of winter indicated that zoning was necessary to increase the town population. I was not aware that this was an issue. I was not aware that we needed to increase our town's population. We live in Caroline because we enjoy the rural environment. We live in Caroline because this is where we want to live. We do not necessarily want to live in a suburban environment. At any rate, the board's actions on zoning appear to be both authoritarian and elitist. The board's actions have riled up the general community because the attitude appears to be unresponsive to the citizens of Caroline. I am not opposed to zoning per se, personally, but I am opposed to the way the board is trying to implement zoning. Now, if zoning is to be considered, I think the following steps should be taken, or at least considered. 1, you need to do a comprehensive evaluations of the citizens of Caroline to determine if the citizens actually want zoning. Perhaps a public vote or something so that everybody knows what the outcome is going to be. Because from everything I've heard, most people don't know why zoning wants to be implemented. Okay, after this takes place, you need to articulate to the citizens that zoning is desired by the majority of the citizens. And then once that's done, then you can implement the process of zoning. From my perspective, the first 2 steps were not done. Or if they were done, this information was not passed on to the Caroline residents. The result of these missteps has resulted in anger towards the Caroline Town Board. So where do we go from here? I would highly recommend that the board, A, determine what the majority of people of Caroline want. And then once they know this, then they need to make sure that everybody in the town understands that yes, the majority of the town wants zoning, and once this information needs to be passed out to everybody, so we all agree that yes, the majority wants zoning. Once this is done, then you can go ahead and you can start to implement zoning. But I don't think these steps have actually been taking place, and I think that's why there's so much anger towards the town board. So, those are my thoughts on zoning. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andy. Chad, Tibbs.
I really didn't have anything planned to say, but I just wanted to say thank you everybody for coming. I'm Chad Tibbs. I lived in 3 parts here. Grew up Sagerville, lived up on Fred Hannon's place for a while when Kenny built his house, so I've lived in the Speedsville area, and now I'm in Brookendale. I want to thank everybody for coming out. You guys are doing the right thing. They may not be, let them know. We got to keep this going, because they're keep going. I don't want this town to change.
Yeah.
Look, can I speak again? So just briefly, I I've read a lot of zoning laws. I deal with a lot of zoning laws. And what you have written here, the draft, is a monster. It is a monster. It is going to impact people in ways that you haven't even dreamed of yet. And it will do a number of things. It will drive up the cost of housing significantly. As an example, if this zoning law was enforced before I built Boysville, I never would have built it. Never would have built it. I mean, the reason why I built it in Caroline is because there was no zone. Because I had the flexibility and to be creative, to build something unique, to experiment, quite honestly, when I started out. And I put another community down in Hector, overlooking Seneca Lake, a spectacularly beautiful rental community there. And I went specifically to Hector because there is no zoning. And that afforded me the flexibility. You got to understand, you know, if I was to try to build in the town of Ithaca, at least 10 to 20% of the cost of the project would be just getting through the regulatory process. And just to deal with their myriad of regulations. That's what's going to happen if you put this zoning law in Caroline. So instead, you don't have that myriad of regulation that you have to, you know, hire experts and engineers and every other thing to study to get done to get through. You can put it into the project you build. You can make a nicer house. You can make a nicer building. You can make a nicer project. Ultimately, the cost of those regulations come out of something. The quality of the project gets reduced. The other thing I would say is the way that zoning law is written right now, you make rental, which is generally tends to be more affordable than other forms of housing. About a third of the country lives in rental housing. You make them a second-class citizen. There is, except for a two-family house, there's no place in the town of Caroline, as you got it scheduled right now, that you can build out of right. Multi-family. You have to get a special use permit. Why is rental housing, why are we elevating single-family homes to this sort of holy grail of everything? That's the most important thing in the world. And why is somebody who lives in a rental house being treated like a second-class citizen? That's really what you're doing. And when you say a special use permit, some people are going to say, well, it's permitted, but you got to get a permit. Well, it's really saying we really would prefer not to have it, essentially. And a special use permit, every place where it says special use permit required, that does not guarantee. They can say no. They can say no. And take examples. The Brookton market. I don't know, but I doubt if the Brookton market's on more than a half an acre of land. But right now, you have a law that says, hey, because for a commercial building, it's got to be on at least an acre of land, as an example. So you're, the very things that you're trying to preserve, that you like, you claim you like, and I think you do, the zoning is going to make them more difficult. It's going to make them more expensive. It's going to discourage that from being done. And the result is, you're not going to make a more vibrant community. You're going to make a more sanitized, conformist, large lot suburban zoning community. And it's going to take time. It evolves over time, but that's what you'll ultimately end up creating. I discourage you from doing that. Protect Caroline by rejecting zoning.
Thanks for your follow-up, Bruno, and Anna Wiley.
So, hi guys, I'm Anna Wiley, I was formerly Chris Bell. My family's been farming in Slaterville for 175 years this year. 175-year-old farm did not get where we are today by your way of thinking. This town did not get where it is today by your way of thinking. We do not live the same lives. We're very different from you. We think differently than you. And you clearly do not realize our way of thinking, because if you did, you wouldn't be so confused as to why we all take our rights as Americans and taxpayers so seriously. We need to realize, regardless of your intentions, this affects everybody. There is no possible way this could ever pan out fair and make everybody happy. We have a lot of useful intel of surrounding towns that have zoning, and it proves our worry that it's hurting farmers and not helping them. So I'm extremely concerned. Why does someone need to come and tell me exactly where and how to build my house, if there's already health department, DEC, and code enforcement regulations to do that? My husband and I personally dealt with this when we built our house 6 years ago, right next door to my mother-in-law. I believe that if zoning went through, we wouldn't have been able to do that because it's on like an acre lot or something. I don't know, but I guess you're going to be the ones controlling us, so we'll see how that goes. Just because you have a handful of people that aren't good neighbors who can't mind their own business, that doesn't mean that everyone should pay for it. I don't see how you could possibly think this would ever make anyone happy. Every situation is completely different. This law might help 3 people over there, but destroy chances of 100 people over there. Farmers are the best environmentalists you could ever ask for. My dad can pick up a handful of dirt and just know right then what to do with it. So why would we want to pay extra money for some expert in order to build anything? We know which way the wind blows and which way the sun rises and sets. We know which way we want our homes placed because no one knows our land better than us, period. You're favoring the rich over the poor, the same rich who want zoning completely, who are not considering anyone, us very people who have done the boots on the ground, brute force labor that made Caroline the rural place you love. You have no idea what we go through day to day to keep it that way. So we don't need your help preserving it. We've done it ourselves for long enough. Once zoning is here, it's here to stay, and they can add any regulation after it's in place. I hope that's correct. I think it's correct, because everyone I've talked to in Danby, Homer, and Dryden, farmers, just cousins with, my cousin has 40 acres in Homer, and after their zoning laws were put in, they changed the regulations so you have to have 450 feet of road frontage or something. He can't build anything now on 40 acres. That's insane. Like, I don't understand what makes you guys, this is a power grab and you know it. It's a land grab, it's a violation of private property. I guess that's it. You'll hear from me.
Peter Roy. Thank you.
I think I'm the least eloquent person in the room, and that's great because, God damn, I love listening to all these people. I just do want to make a comment here based upon the common misperceptions about possible zoning regulations that Mark put in the folder there, and I hope everybody reads it. Thank you for putting them there. And by the way, I appreciate you, Mark, for coming out because you're strongly identified with anti-zoning, so you got the guts to come out here. I think that should be noted. We wanted to put something out here too, but Mark rather that we didn't until after the meeting, and it's 10 reasons why zoning is bad, and they'll be setting on the table as soon as this meeting's over with. So this common misperception thing, I think that technically they are correct in their answers. I mean, I read the thing rather quickly, but there's some interesting things that I think when you read it, you should kind of think about. One is the way the questions are phrased. The answers can appear kind of comforting, but think about the phraseology. There's several of them here that say, if I own a parcel of land in the ag/rural district, and then ... from that. What about the people who don't own land in a designated rural district? Now they have a little more fear, but they're not being addressed in the answers to these questions. So I do think it's important that you keep that in mind when you read this stuff. And then the other point is that no, zoning would not say anything about this. No, the proposed law would not control that. No, nothing in the proposed zoning law would mandate, and so forth. No, agricultural and farm operations would not be allowed in all proposed zoning districts. So, on the one hand, we have all been admonished to not worry about the content of that original draft that was issued to the zoning commission and posted on the website, because it's all gonna change anyway. Come on, don't worry about it, that's good. We're gonna do better. But, yet they acknowledge that the proposed draft doesn't contain this and doesn't contain that. Well, if they can take it away, they can also add it in. And so to say that the proposed draft zoning law doesn't say this now, without a promise that it never will, and as you understand, the town board will get the zoning draft from the zoning commission once they have completed it. Then the commission ceases to exist under state law, and then the town board takes it from there. And they can deliberate it as long as they want, or not at all. The town board, upon receipt of that, could schedule a mandatory public hearing and then vote immediately after that's over to accept the language as it has been delivered. I don't think the town board will play it that way, but they could. So it is important to kind of address some of these potential things, whether or not they end up making it into the final draft or not. And if we're not supposed to do that, then don't cite the contents of the draft when you're trying to reassure people that things might not be as bad as they think. Thank you.
Anyone else? Robert?
I want to say something. Pete did bring it up, I was hoping he would.
Oh, hell, I'm sorry. I want to leave some of you, man.
You three are sitting there, we're missing two. And all five of you need to understand, Pete used to sit there. And we voted him out of there. You guys gotta understand that. You guys are putting in, like Bruno said, so there's no multiple dwellings. People that live in Bruno's little community down there are the ones that put you guys in town board. You guys that live out on top of the hills didn't put you guys in there. His clients, his customers are the ones that put you guys in there. And I also want to let you guys all know the moratorium against the businesses. While I was listening to one of their Zoom things, one of the town board members that aren't up there right now stated they didn't want the Dollar General because the Dollar General brought crime. Okay? I heard it. It's got to be in one of the recordings. So, people who are going through the recordings, look for it. It's in there. Bruce, I want to thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah.
Zoning commission.
Yeah.
You're here.
Well, I know you're not answering the question,
Thank you,
but
Rob.
that is my question. Why on earth is there a business moratorium going on if it wasn't just for the Dollar General? Because I don't see a whole lot of businesses rushing to put in businesses in. So I have that question. I think the board should be able to answer the question. Why, if it wasn't for just the Dollar General, why is it? Because I'm telling you, there's not a whole bunch of businesses rushing to build a business in the town. So I see no sense of there being a moratorium on a business in this town. Well, zoning is being considered. None whatsoever. That's complete nonsense.
I can address
right there.
that, Robert.
Well, a couple of years
So I want to start addressing, I mean, it's 2:40.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we can address some, unless there's more people who want to speak.
I'd like to say something, just short.
Sure. Your name?
From Slavery Springs, I grew up here, lived there my whole life. When I was a little kid, if you were coming into town, you'd see nothing but huge maple trees, and it looked like a tunnel going through that town. We had a little store on one end of town, a little store on the other. You couldn't go in there and sit down and have a cup of coffee, get a sandwich, no. Now we got a dandy market in the middle of town. People don't like it. It's got bright lights. Okay, I understand. But you can go there. If you don't like the lights, you're sorry. But it's a good store. I mean, the sidewalks used to be slate slabs, all wet down the side. Now we're concrete, it's a beautiful place. But things progress. I don't see how anybody can assume that they should be able to tell somebody else how to live their life or their land, or get a shot in their arm, or whatever. It's just, shouldn't be done. That's it.
Just one brief comment.
Okay.
I'm struck by, it puzzles me. What is really, where is the sort of the crying need, that is driving zoning? I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't see like this negative transformation of Caroline happening, and so we got to rush in and we got to put a moratorium on, and we got to shut things down, and we got to fast forward zoning. I just don't see it. The other thing I don't see.
I hear your question. Okay.
The other thing I don't see is I don't see a strong support for zoning. Now, maybe they're not here, but I've been in other towns with controversial issues, and you have people on one side of it and people on the other, and they're getting up and speaking their mind. I find it very enlightening, illuminating that they're not here. And the question I have is the town board sort of looking and listening to its citizens and saying, wow, there doesn't seem to be this strong support. And when you're doing something as consequential as going from no zoning to zoning, it is a radical step. A radical step. And that should only be undertaken with overwhelming support for something like that. And I just don't see it.
So thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts today. I guess I do want to respond to some of the comments. I guess first and foremost, I would point out that a lot of the comments, almost all the comments today have been directed towards zoning, as if it's one monolithic thing. And zoning is a very, it can be anything you want. And that's the function of the zoning commission, to mold it into something that's appropriate for the community. That's what Bruce is working on. That's what the other zoning commission members are working on. So I know there's this draft up. I think it's great that people have looked at it. I think the feedback to the zoning commission has been helpful for them. But I do think it's also necessary and prudent for people to wait and see what they come up with and see how it really does. Are your worst fears realized? And what are the good things that can come of it? And, we wouldn't be considering zoning if we didn't think there were some virtues that are important to the community.
What are they?
Whoa! I can't think of one.
Please. So, the central planning that somebody mentioned is absolutely true. That is what zoning is. And so I think it's important that the community has a hand in guiding development in a way that builds the community that we want to see. So to me, the things that, Bruno, you asked me early on, so what are you alarmed about? To me, I'm alarmed about why I think zoning is something we should be looking at. Sprawl and the juxtaposition of incompatible uses, so that people who live somewhere in the town aren't suddenly impacted by something out of the blue. And I think we can do this in a nuanced way that protects your property rights, protects your ability to do home businesses and all the things you're here for, all the things, we're all entrepreneurs.
Got those protections now.
So a couple of other, I just wanted to start with that point to really emphasize waiting to see what the zoning commission comes up with. Someone brought up the moratorium and why that's not just a reaction to Dollar General. It is not a reaction to Dollar General. It was only considered because we were completing the comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan might well call, at least to this town board, to that town board, for additional land use regulations. The principle of a land use moratorium under New York State law is to freeze things when you're considering changes to your land use regulations, so that there's not a mad dash to, get things in. We, it's just the prudent measure that we took. It also calls for why we don't want to unduly delay consideration of zoning. So, we want to really evaluate it in an efficient manner. We don't want to rush it, but we don't want to unduly delay it. Again, zoning is not a single thing. Let's see what they come up with. Someone mentioned, and I know it's a concern, and if people do have concerns about their individual issues, those are instructed to the zoning commission. So please let them know, and I know some people have. The current draft has it's not a 3-acre limit, but it's for a big parcel that's subdivided, it's for a 3-acre average. So the smallest parcel can be as small as the health department will allow.
What if you only have 3 acres to start with?
So, excuse me?
What if you only have 3 acres or 4 or 5 to start with? You can't do the
Right.
averaging.
So that's true in that case. So this is something to look at. And it's a decision. They are considering it, so.
Mark,
There,
if I
yes.
can I just interject, because it might be helpful to clarify that even the lot sizes that are being discussed are not, that is not set
It's not, exactly.
at all.
I didn't mean to say that, and thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm
Yes, absolutely.
That's okay.
So, and I don't want to, a few small points were brought up that I do want to clarify. Our meetings are now open to the public. We do have Zoom capacity, so they're hybrid. So we use Zoom and in person. So the meetings are being held that way now. I do want to clarify that I have never asked a code officer to not enforce the building code. And I will also point out that, the employment issues with the code officers are personnel decisions and of the town board. I don't know, if I heard correctly, I don't know where I don't know of a document that says that justifies considering zoning in order to increase the town's population. That was news to me.
The wording in something you guys sent out
Yeah.
did kind
So
of
the
consider it that way. It was.
It might have been the old mill that had the yellow pages in it or something.
Well,
that.
the yellow pages thing that came out recently was mine.
He says it's before
That
that.
was before that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was interesting the way it was written.
So that's not my language or understanding or reality. So, I think those are the main things. I will say, I understand the loss of, a couple people brought up the ambulance, the Slaterville ambulance was lost in 2016. And I have been working on this issue with the Council of Governments, and I think, it's slow, we are making headway, and I understand the need for, especially for at least first response in the town of Carrollton to get, so that is something that's on my plate and we are working on. So those are the main points I wanted to make, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues to see if they want to offer any comments. So.
I guess I have a lot of serious questions about what's going to entail for the town of Caroline, its workability and its appropriateness. Also worried about the costs and the administration. It seems to be creating a significant bureaucracy that I think is hard for a small town population of 3,300 people to shoulder. But it's only would require a long-term commitment to the bureaucracy and the cost of doing that, and then enforcing it evenly and fairly. So it just seems, I'm thankful you're all here. And you've raised a lot of good questions, a lot of good points, and I really appreciate that.
We're thankful you're there.
Thank you,
Yeah. So anyway, as I see right now, I can't support zoning for the South Carolina.
Can I just follow up on that, Cal? Should clarify our process. So the town board cannot even discuss considering adoption of zoning until we get something from the zoning commission. So it's down the line for sure. I think we need to have something. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not making a decision at this point, and it is clear it's the zoning commission is now working on it. So
I just really need to know why some of the zoning commission members act so arrogant on Zoom, don't want to hear us. We're not crazy. We see them in the way they treat us. It's not okay. Our lives are in their hands, you guys. Like, if they're going to be giving you something that controls my future here when I've spent 30 years of my life working on this farm for free because I want to build a house on my family's legacy, I should be able to do that. If these people don't want to hear us, I don't want them controlling my life. So can we do something about the way they treat us during zoning meetings?
So
that's my question.
What about board meetings when one of the board members sits there and rolls his eyes at us?
Rolls his eyes or gets up and walks out.
So I just want to, point out that the zoning commission is working really hard. I know at one meeting they limited privilege of the floor so that they could get their work done. That's fine, but they've also opened the doors incredibly and been working hard to answer questions. They've accepted questions by email and all the questions that you all have asked, and they've done just yeoman's work thinking about it, working with the planner to provide answers. So I'll take this opportunity to point out those answers are now posted on the Zoning Commission's page. Very thoughtful, they're helpful to me, and they worked very hard to produce this common misperceptions, which I do encourage. I printed 50 copies, so almost everybody here could have a copy. The common misperceptions that the Zoning Commission created from the synthesizing the questions and concerns that they got. So I hope those will be helpful, and I do want to defend the Zoning Commission. I do think they have your best interests at heart, and they are listening and trying to take into serious consideration every comment they get. So
I think you should tell them that a lot of the community doesn't feel like they want. We don't feel that they want to listen to us. That's the point. We feel rejected, and that's why people are so angry.
ahead, sorry.
And I hear, I mean,
Thank you.
it is duly noted, and
Thank you.
so, I don't, yeah.
Yeah,
Not to put you on the spot.
I don't know if I should say anything or what I should say, or, there's a lot of things I would like to say. But as a zoning commission member, I don't feel I should say at this point in time. However, one consideration I've had all the way down the road with this whole process is why in the hell do we have to be going so fast? We've got a couple people and one planner who has answered all these questions. When you have a big zoning commission that should be able to look at all the questions, we should have had time to be able to discuss it. It's just like this paper that came out as to questions that aren't answered or whatever. Who brought that up? Bill Paducah and Barbara are the only ones. I got that in my email a day ago at 4 o'clock in the afternoon stating I needed an answer right away so he could produce it for this meeting. I worked. I got home, I read it, it was 11 o'clock at night. I'll get up in the morning and I'll read the damn things, and if I have to make a comment, I will. But like normal, the comment I make isn't whatever. It doesn't matter. At least I got a chance to comment. However, why so fast? That document that he handed out with those questions that Pete looked over, just like Pete said, look at whatever questions in there out of however many questions there are in there, at least 3/4 of them will tell you to go look at page 184 or page 106 or read this law or read that law. These people, everybody doesn't have the time or the energy to do that research. As a zoning commission member, that's what my job is. I would like to have that kind of time to be able to do that so that I can look anybody in the face and say, we did the best we could do. And that's my biggest concern is we don't need to rush. And the other thing is, I'll be at the next meeting and I'll discuss a few other things. But like I said, we are hearing you, we are trying our best, but, and as far as I can't comment on how the process has gone because I'm not supposed to, I guess, but otherwise, there are a few things that have happened. Like I said, I had asked all along, it's in the minutes and everything else. One of the main questions I asked on this board, as we have gone all the way down the road, you could look at the tapes and see questions that have been asked. One question that was really up, that I really thought should have been answered better, that never was how in the hell did we go from a 1-page draft law to a 130-page draft law in less than a month when we haven't even picked zones, hamlets, we haven't come to any agreement, but now we have this law. I said all along, I thought we should have talked to our town lawyer, he's been our lawyer for 30-some years. He should have been to the zoning commission when it was first formed to say, this is basic zoning, this is how things should start. Then we go to a plan. There's been things said that aren't true as far as that the zoning commission said we should do this, and we didn't. I mean, there's stuff like this that's been, I guess that's enough. Sorry. Well, we're doing the best we can. We're trying to do everything we can do.
And I'd like to interject, they're working damn hard.
Absolutely.
Can I make one more comment? I just want to point out that, the fact that you have a comprehensive plan or the fact that you're considering zoning does not require a moratorium.
We know that.
At all.
Exactly.
And I would also say that I think this is a good start. I feel like you, at least the three of you are here, I think you heard us, you gave us an opportunity, and I appreciate it. I would also suggest that you start a process of doing things that starts to build some unity and to try to tone down on the divisions. And one way to start is to get rid of this moratorium when it's
Exactly.
Yeah. And
That's
take a little more time. I mean, this is a radical change if you want it to do. And take a little more time. There's no fire burning. The sky isn't falling. And take some time to if you can, to build support for it. I'm not sure you can, but if you, that would be the process.
So you know who I am.
Good. Yep.
I don't know who you are, I mean, I can't remember.
Catherine.
Catherine, I keep putting something up with it.
We're eating ziti in the Speedsville Fire Hall, talking about rural ag and the comprehensive plan,
So the
to a previous point.
So the ag for, what is this committee thing that I apparently am on, but I get no schedule, and don't know when the meeting's like.
Okay.
So I'm like, are my emails going anywhere?
Did you know you're on the committee?
I don't know. I got a welcome, never seen it.
I sent you the welcome.
So you're gonna have zoning regardless, is that your?
No, that's not true.
Well, that's what Mark was saying right up there, just a few minutes ago. We're gonna have zoning, period.
I did not say that.
You said, you stated that you don't have it organized yet.
But you're gonna have some form of zoning.
There's either zoning or.
I got that tape.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't.
So you're gonna concede, we're gonna concede to your form of zoning. You want zoning, period, in some form or manner. And once it comes in, there's no taking it back. Because it gets add on to and add on to and add on to. So I don't know about the rest of you here, but I am no zone. No zoning. There is no give or take. It is it or it's nothing. Don't listen to them.
Your taxes never go down, they always go up, and it's going to be the same thing. Your zoning is going to pop in, there's going to be this little rule, okay, we can throw that away, but that rule, this rule will throw it, and then they're going to keep adding to it, and you're going to get zoning shoved right up where we don't want.
So for the sake of,
I'm sorry, Tony finished.
So maybe you could answer that.
about the ag
See,
committee,
you've had my emails, give me a schedule.
yeah, I would love a schedule.
Oh, you guys don't have one?
If I would give it, anything I had, I would give it. So Pete, there's a pretty valiant effort, I would say. I mean, a lot of good discussion and debate and interest and engagement around the agriculture community in this town, which for those of you who don't know me, I'm Catherine, I've been on the board. Prior to the board, I was on the planning board, so I can speak to the comprehensive plan process, at least parts of it. One of the things I did write down as people were sharing was some concern about the process of the comprehensive plan and only having survey responses from a survey, which occurred even before I was in the planning board. I think there was like took a long time, it was a long process. But one of the things that did happen that I want people to know did happen, if they're not aware, and I'm glad you brought this up, because that's where we met, was we had listening sessions and like town, what did we call them? Cafes or something. And we actually made this one an actual cafe. I baked the ziti myself for that meeting, and we had a dinner and we talked about what we believed agriculture was and wasn't, and what's rural character and all that stuff.
You never invited me.
And, well, everyone was invited. So, like we're all here, we're taking the time to be here. I so appreciate that you all are here, and we want to have everyone be able to go back to doing what they were doing before they came into this room today, and we value everyone's time.
Boiling sap.
And there were not very many people at that meeting. My point is that there's competing priorities, right, for everyone at any time when we're talking about engagement with the public, engagement in a town, who's a volunteer, who's not a volunteer, we have children and animals and farms and families and businesses, and that is just the reality. And so I think everyone's trying to do, I speak for myself, I have a lot of optimism and faith in the community that everyone is doing the very best they can to articulate what matters to them. And that's one of the things that I appreciate, even when there's hard shit to talk about, pardon my mouth, right? And that's just...
That's exactly what it is.
That's the way it is.
It's sleep over this.
Really hard. And I too am losing sleep over it. And because we all collectively care about this town. People have said to me, to be honest, I can't believe we got all this stuff in Carolina. And I have said, my response has been consistent, I think it's awesome. Because even though this is a time that's hard to be on the board, I would rather be on the board now when something really important is happening than, like, I encourage everyone to be involved in things, and you'll see that the vast majority of the time it is not very dramatic. Like, this happens to be, like, an area of great interest, and I think that's a positive thing. And I understand that there's a lot of emotion around it, and, something that Hannah said honestly really got me, and I wrote it down about, like, this presumption that we are so different, and, like, I hope that's not actually, respectfully, like, I hope that's not true.
No, I understand, but just think about it. Like, can you imagine being a farmer and then, like, try to put yourselves in the shoes of someone that lives in, like, a little rental house in Brooktondale with no land that doesn't know what to do with themselves because they're so used to just being in a field somewhere.
Exactly.
Or being chased by angry bulls and angry mama cows that are dropping dead calves in knee-deep snow. My dad wanted to come to the first meeting you guys had, and he was so beat to shit tired because of that happened. And you don't have time for this. I'm just lucky I had a baby because now I have time to pay attention.
Right, you got it. I mean, so I agree. I mean, I guess there's a lot of, I'll just, again, speak for myself, there is more agreement than it might seem.
Yeah, I also wrote that down, and I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the challenge of the process, again, a competing priority is, there's concern about rushing, which I hear, and then there's concern about a moratorium, which has a time point. There's concern about taking too much time. There's concern about not taking enough time. Like, there's always going to be, this has gone on in Hector for 5 years. 5 years. So, I, have some concern about the climate in the community going on this way for 5 years, and I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that that's, so we have to figure out, as a community, how can we navigate this in a way that is
It's
thoughtful.
very easy saying, we're gonna forget about something.
Well, that's one thing.
Everybody will go home and continue on with their lives.
Sure, exactly. Was it really so bad in this town?
So I'm gonna leave you with one point. That's one way. I mean, you are spot on, right? There's a spectrum of ways to deal with this. One way is to say, just yes, no, black, white, all or nothing. That is one way. And another way, I guess, which I would urge, because I have a lot of regret about this draft. I've said it publicly, I'll say it publicly now, I've said it to Mark, I've said it to Cal, this is a problem. I'm not commenting on the content of it being a problem, I'm just saying that the existence of the thing and the way it has gone forward, I think we are in agreement that has been challenging, to put it mildly.
And the important thing is some of the facts and figures that he put out there. It's growing, it's urban sprawl, things are coming here, but it's not coming here like we're getting totally wiped off the face of the earth with development and pollution and stuff. I mean,
So what I would offer curiosity around is, let's pretend there is no document in existence right now. There is no draft, and that's hard, it's a hard ask, but that is what I'm doing for myself, so I'll just transparently share this. Pretend we don't have a thing to look at, and let's envision the community, and envision what matters to you, and envision what you might worry about. Because I hear when people say, I don't want any zoning, and I hear it, that's a legitimate, that is one approach. But I would also be really curious to know, what are the things that concern each and every one of you the most about your businesses, the most about your families, the most about your farms, and let's have that conversation in the absence of however many meetings. That's my answer. John.
There was one thing I'll say, is there's not such a thing as too long. I've said over and over again to the zoning commission when we've discussed it and things have come up that it's going to take as long as it takes to do the best that we can do to get this right. That's how long it's going to take. And there is no time limit as far as I'm concerned.
So I'll say a couple things real quick to answer Catherine's question about what is it that people really want. I think when I see that all the people that are against any level of zoning, what they want when they think about their home or their business is they want freedom. They don't want to be told what to do on their own property regardless. And I never wanted a certain business in front of my business. It hurts me. I never once thought I could tell that person what to do on their land. That's the difference between me and someone who does think that. And the other thing I'm going to mention is, you know, we've talked about this comprehensive plan a bunch of times. I have some pages out of the draft comprehensive plan where there was 6 years put into it for some board member changes, and finally a final version was put out. But there's a paragraph in here that talks about land use and commercial development, and it talks about site planning and other ways of, you know, taking care of the needs of Caroline. And part of the paragraph reads as this: the advantage of this process, again talking about the site planning group, is that it treats each project on a case-by-case basis, building in opportunities for neighbors to provide input on specific projects and suggest ways to ensure compatibility with surrounding uses. This is unlike a zoning system in which a uniform set of rules is developed for each portion of the town. The vision and goals articulated in Part 1 serve as guiding principles that will be incorporated into the system. That's great. No zoning, but we've done this over and over in this town. We've eliminated fracking. We've, you know, knocked down the noise ordinance. You know, other things here and there have come and gone. And this comprehensive plan draft talks about the way that we've done that with no zoning. That paragraph was eliminated in the final version.
I would also add that the site plan reviews for subdivisions already exist in the town. So it already exists.
We know.
The point is, and I would also emphasize that, again, it isn't like John said, people want to have freedom to do with what their land. The reality is we're already working under restrictions. The county, the state, the federal. I mean, the point is, it isn't like there's no environmental regulations that we're working on. There's a lot of them, and they're good. And they're taking care of the issue. You don't need more to address this. They're already being dealt with.
That, thank you for all you said, Kathy. Take it hard. But I also, between you and Ann, what you were saying, there's a groundswell of opposition. I don't think there was any groundswell to create it. You know what I mean? So that division, where's the division between us and the board or whoever created this idea? There's not another 150, 500,000 people screaming we want zoning. I don't see them. That's not what started this, although we're supposed to back off. It just strikes me as odd that we're building something out of, you represent what the town wants. The town didn't come to you and say, we want zoning. The town's coming to you and saying, don't, at least at this point.
And to what Tony's saying right now, that questionnaire that went out to the town, that apparently the comprehensive plan was built from, and we answered all these questions about how important is this level of protection to you or this, that. I looked through that. There is not one opportunity in there for a person to say, I just want to keep my freedoms, and that's more important to me than controlling the level of this or that in the community. You didn't give the person that choice. You made the questionnaire in such a way that it did nothing but steer you towards more regulation.
Yep. So Chad Tibbles and then Cindy.
When this zoning thing first started, I heard some buzz about it and didn't think much about it. There's towns around us that have it, driving and whatnot. They got businesses and stuff, and things seem to be going hard right there. They got their issues. All kinds of towns. Look at all the ones around us. But what was brought up was it started out as being 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, and that's fine, probably standard or whatever. So not a lot of people took a lot of interest in this committee, thinking, all right, it's only going to be a few things, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the committee was formed, or handpicked from the few that wanted in, and however you selected it, it's more to the left or to the right or however you want to put it. But now it's grown into that, and now people are seeing 135, 132 pages of stuff that pertains to them, and now that committee is going, and you are focused on that committee. You're not even listening to us. When you came up here, it sounded that way to me, that you're gonna go off what that committee does, but that committee is set in their ways a lot of ways. I mean, I know they're taking in information and stuff, but if that could all be redone again, or somebody backs down, I want on that committee.
Yeah.
Let that be known.
Those 3 open seats.
I'm gonna,
I want on.
right, thank you. Oh, Cindy.
The comprehensive plan, I was still working when that was drafted years ago. Ed Cope was one of the board members, and he kept coming down my office trying to shove that comprehensive plan, how wonderful it was. And he stood right in my doorway, I'll never forget it, and I said, I want no part of it. I know exactly where that comprehensive plan is gonna go. And he told me, you don't understand. This has nothing to do with zoning, this is just a plan to put together what we're looking at. It has nothing to do with zoning, and now, since we're proposing zoning, I keep hearing, well, the comprehensive plan is steering us that way, and you're right about that survey. A lot of people didn't get it, I got it. And I filled it out, and the questions were all loaded, and if I'd known that they were gonna base talking about zoning on that survey, I would have burnt this up with a top.
So I want to respond to Chad briefly because it actually goes back to what Bruce, you said that I want to clarify because it's really important and it's connected. The point I want to clarify is that I don't in any way mean to, I want to correct what I said if it implied that I thought there was some sort of time frame to zoning when I talked about Hector and took 5 years. I agree, Bruce and everyone, that there's no timeline. I mean, at all, and it needs to be done thoughtfully, and that could take a really, really long time. I think the competing struggle that I'm experiencing, and maybe you all can help with problem solving this, is that we need to then figure out a way. Let's say we are open to it taking as long as it takes. You all have very rightly expressed some serious concern about, I'm just going to say, I mean, tone and approach and process of the zoning commission. And that potentially, I'm not speaking for them, I have nothing to do with them, and we should clarify also, we have nothing, the zoning commission and the board are entirely separate. Everything that has been stated about you want this and you want that and you're doing this with the draft, we have, like, it's not ours yet. When it is, I will be sure to tell you that, but it's not right now. But I will say that my concern about your valid concerns about the zoning commission process potentially reflects the enormous amount of time and effort and just seriousness of what the process is dealing with right now in the community. Like, that is not, I worry that that's not sustainable for one group of people to be dealing with all of this for however long it takes in an indeterminate timeline.
We will. Well, we will stay with it as long as
I know, but I guess what I'm asking you, that's perfect, because we, even having this meeting, I will say, like, was pretty controversial for those of you who have been following the town board. I mean, just to do this, right? This was a push because, you know, there is a belief that this matters, and we want to be here. And we are here. And what was requested was, please bring your questions, please bring your concerns, please bring your thoughts, but please don't bring your animosity or argument, right? And I appreciate, like, all the energy, and people can say whatever they want to say and speak with emotion because it's emotional. But that also has an impact, you know? I mean, so to be totally honest, when, like, this is the first thing I see when I come in the door, as much as I appreciate that it is absolute protected, like, you know, it's totally legitimate for anyone to say whatever you want to say and distribute something like this, this is pretty, like, attacking and antagonistic, and I feel like I feel okay just sharing that.
No, that's fine.
And I can deal with that because that's my job.
Right.
But the zoning commission is a bunch of volunteers. And we need to be really thoughtful about how it is that everyone is being supported in what they're trying to do. So the no zoning is one way, but that's not what the zoning commission is going to respond to because that's just not even their
Yeah,
job.
but y'all created the zoning commission, they didn't come up out of the blue. I'm a town board myself. I know how they get created, and I know who actually votes for the zoning law. Y'all vote for it, but you create a commission to come up with it. I understand all that, but I'm just, but you can also uncommission a commission if you feel that you don't need zoning.
One good thing, one good thing that's coming out of all this, the town board is working hard to do what they need to do. The zoning commission, it states by state law that we only have to have one meeting. The zoning commission is set to where we're gonna go through part 3, and I want everybody to be involved and look at the chart. It's gonna tell you what you can do and where you can do it, where you can't, and put your input in. We're gonna have a meeting after we've only gone through the first 3 parts. State law says we only have to have one. We could do the whole damn thing and hand it to the town board. We're not doing that. We're gonna do the best we can do, get as much input as we can get.
Is it true that there's 3 members not appointed to the zoning commission?
3 open
Are there
spots.
3 vacancies on the zoning commission?
I would not phrase it as a vacancy.
Correct.
Have 3 people left the zoning commission, how's that sound?
Sure.
I mean, I guess, let me frame it a different way. Is it possible for you to appoint 3 more people to the zoning commission?
That's not for, yeah, I can't.
It's up to the town board.
Right, that's
It's
what
up
I'm
to the
saying.
town board.
Is it possible?
It's possible.
Okay, and I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe that you should do that and put create a little more diversity, as in farmers, business people, who have some passion and have some concern. I mean, to create a more diverse board, it might be a way forward for you.
Right. Now I hear that.
I want to,
And that's what they're charged with. They have to create something.
Right. I mean, Tony,
True.
that's a very important point. So there's diversity of belief and opinion, which is essential, and then there's also like just saying no is not what the zoning commission. That's not their job.
Oh, George, I have a question, I guess. I'm confused, like it was up to the town board to get the zoning commission, right? But you guys are the ones voted in, but you don't want to do anything without the zoning commission's, say so, or I guess I'm confused, are these, I kind of know Bruce, but anyway, but the others, are these people professionals with zoning laws elsewhere or something? What makes them experts?
just to clarify the process, the zoning commission is working together with a professional planner, but they're independent from the town board, and so so we're not meddling in their decisions.
Right, but you would just say something about you don't want to act on anything until the zoning commission says whatever.
Right, at some point they'll all decide on a final draft that they're happy with to pass on to the town board. They'll vote on that and then they'll pass it on to us. Then they go away. Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing your thoughts today. I really do. We really appreciate it. And we have 2 more coming up that I mentioned. Thank you. And salamander, all the rain.